to worry about because we're
North and South relationship.
well. I think that we have spent the last decade or more worrying about that and ignoring the human rights situation, and now Kim Jong-il has developed his nuclear weapons program and he's killed 3 million people. So I would say maybe we should have a shift in strategy. Maybe we ought to start talking about human rights. Maybe we ought to start trying to do things to bring the truth into North Korea. I think that getting information in North Korea, getting the truth in North Korea is the best way to ensure peace and stability on the Korean Peninsula is for the North Korean people to know the truth, because the threat from North Korea, from the regime, is only because of Kim Jong-il's policies and because of his isolation and brainwashing of the North Korean people. And if the North Korean people knew the truth, they would realize that people in South Korea, the United States of America, and Japan have been trying to get them humanitarian aid and help them from being hungry, and certainly from the starvation that we saw in the past decade from famine. And so I think that if the concern is that we want the North and South to have like really nice little pleasant talks and ignore all these things, well, that strategy hasn't worked. It's been a complete failure. The agreed framework, the appeasement policy, the engagement policy, 6-party talks, all of these, the sunshine policy, have been a complete failure in reining in Kim Jong-il's nuclear ambitions. And they have, at the same time, led to the death of millions and millions of people, millions and millions of innocent people. So, as far as this being unpleasant for the North-South talks, I think that they have a lot more to be concerned about. Because what this is an attempt to reach out to the people, the truth, and try to get aid, help, information, and money into their hands.
What do you think our government
Well, I think there's a number of things that should be done immediately. Now, I realize as a human rights activist, I can call for the shutting down of the political prisoner camps. I can call for these certain things. And I realize that in talks, in diplomatic talks, you have to work things in a much more slowly. But I think at the very beginning, there's a couple things we should do. First of all, we should promise to give North Korea as much food and humanitarian assistance that is needed, as long as we can stay to see it consumed. And what I mean by that is, we know that in the past when we delivered humanitarian aid, even when the NGOs went into the villages to deliver the aid, they would leave, and the North Korean army would go back in and collect all the food rations back from the people to whom it had been delivered. So we should pledge to provide as much humanitarian aid as they need, with the understanding that people will stay, they're delivering that aid to make sure that it's consumed by the families, the orphans, the children in these orphanages, to see that it's consumed by the intended recipient, number one. Number two, we have to deal with this refugee situation. We should be calling on North Korea not to execute their own people for the crime of crossing the border. And we know that when the evidence of the public executions came out, thanks to the media, there was evidence that this was reported about the executions. We understand that the number of public executions has declined, and I believe that's because it was exposed in the media, and people became familiar with what's happening. So I think that we need to talk about this refugee issue. We need to talk about the fact that 80% of North Korean women are being trafficked, in China. We need to expose this issue, and we need to call on North Korea to stop criminalizing people from crossing the border, because this is leading to this horrible situation in China. Because these refugees are fleeing to China because they're hungry, and most of the time it's mothers trying to feed their children that are ending up being sold and being trafficked. So delivering food aid, ensuring that it gets to the intended recipient, raising this issue about the refugees and calling for the ending of the punishment for those that are repatriated. And this is, I'm talking about North-South talks. Third is to request that the International Red Cross be allowed to deliver food and humanitarian assistance to re-engage in re-education centers, which is obviously the political prison camps, which North Koreans deny that there are already political prison camps. So we can say, well, we want it to go to the re-education centers. We understand that there's severe lack of medical care and severe hardship in these camps, and we would like to build the International Red Cross to a neutral group, a totally neutral group, to go in and deliver humanitarian and medical care to these camps.
What are you planning to do next time for the rescue?
What do we plan to do next? Well, we're always helping fund the rescues of refugees. That's a top priority because this is a life or death situation. So we're always rescuing refugees, and we're working with the humanitarian leaders that are part of the Underground Railroad, trying to raise funds to help rescue refugees out of China. Reaching out to the North Korean people through balloon launches, through Free North Korea Radio, trying to use every means possible to get information into the North Korean people. Continuing to do that, and then of course educating people in the United States of America and South Korea about the problem. And we just did a day devoted to the refugees in Washington on September 24th. But we're looking forward now to doing North Korea Freedom Week for the first time in Seoul in April. And this is a week of promoting the freedom, human rights, and dignity of the North Korean people. We've been doing it in Washington since 2004, so I'm very excited it's coming to Seoul in 2010, because the sooner it comes to Seoul, the sooner we can have North Korea Freedom Week in Pyongyang.
Thank you.
Okay?